forget. Welcome. I'm here with Denise today, and Denise is joining us to share her journey, how she did it, where she started, and where she's headed, because she's headed to great places. So welcome, Denise. I want to thank you for joining us and all the women here that are going to be hearing your story. And let's start off. Can you just introduce a little bit about yourself?
So I'm Denise, and I have two children. I work full time. I also help my husband run his own personal company. I 2 years ago now, I actually had a career change and went back to school. So I'm also doing part-time school. So we have a very, very busy schedule. And I have been doing a weight loss journey for the past probably 6 years. There was a second baby in there, but it's been some trying times for 6 years.
Yeah, that's a long time. And just because I know your story, we're gonna share now with some of the women in the group, is you had really great success after your first baby, right?
Yeah, so after my first baby, I actually lost about 20 pounds in 3 months and then got pregnant with my second. And then we had a bit of complications after the delivery and whatnot. So it took me a while to get back into everything. But once I did, I was actually over my pre-pregnancy weight from my first. And so I was able to lose about 43 pounds.
Yeah. And then after your second, you tried again going back because you're like, hey, this thing really worked for me. And so you went back to the kind of the same program, but then this time it just didn't work for you. Right. And so I just think it's really important to highlight, because a lot of women, they'll come to me and like, I've tried everything. And it's just nothing works. And they feel really doomed to where they're at. And I think for you, you kind of hit that spot. You were hopeful that it was going to give you the same result that it gave you the first time. So do you just want to share a little bit about your experience with like, why didn't it work the second time?
So I think because life was very different now with two children, and it was a very strict set meal plan. It also entailed supplements and whatnot. And I found it the second time around very restrictive for me. So the first time around, I was able to do so well because it was like, it was no problem. I just took everything with me, my shakes and whatnot. And I felt like I was doing great. Second time, I just felt like I didn't have all the time to dedicate that I did before. And it didn't really meet our lifestyle anymore. And I didn't want to have to cook two whole different meals for one for me and then one for my family, or even three sometimes, one for me, the kids, and then my husband. So I think that's where it kind of stemmed from, where it stopped working for me, was at that point when I realized, okay, yeah, it's becoming more of a burden than it is a joyful experience for me.
I think that's really important what you highlighted there, because you said, hey, my lifestyle changed. And so what I used before just didn't work because my lifestyle changed. And I think sometimes even with a lot of women, they'll be like, I just want to get back to the weight that I was when I was 30, or getting back to running 10Ks, because that's what I used to do when you were 30 or 20. But now you're 40 and 50 and you have 2 and 3 and 4 kids later, right?
Yeah.
I also like to highlight the fact that you said it became more of a stressor for you. It didn't fit your lifestyle anymore. It was easy for you the first time, but now this time it just didn't fit your lifestyle anymore. It created a lot more work, which is one of the obstacles a lot of women face, is I don't want to get into separate meals, right? And I don't want to feel like I have to missing out on that and have more work, and you're balancing school and work and stuff. So I think that those two things are really great to highlight, because I get to hear them a lot from women, that there are obstacles in one, getting stuck on, I did this before, so it should work now. I was here, so I should be here now. And two, like, I don't want this extra work or feeling like I'm separate from everybody else. Do I got that about right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So then you said, hey, I still want to lose this weight,
Mhm.
but I need something different. So talk about just that moment there.
So for me, hmm. um, it was, yeah, that moment was an interesting moment, because was at the point where I realized, okay, this isn't working, and I am constantly being told, get back on track, get back on track, but I didn't know what getting back on track was. I knew I needed to eat specific foods. I knew that I needed to take my specific supplements, but I knew that I didn't want to take supplements for the rest of my life. I knew I didn't want to eat vegetables and only protein for the rest of my life. I didn't want cottage cheese every single morning for the rest of my life. I knew at that point, I knew there had to be a better way to still achieve what I wanted to achieve, and to do it without missing out on everything. My kids want to go out for ice cream, and I felt like, well, no, we're not going to go, because, well, I couldn't have any, or I sit there and watch them eat ice cream. And then they questioned, well, mommy, why aren't you having it? And I didn't want my kids to have that misconception that I wasn't eating it because I thought it was bad food, but it was fine for them to have it. So
Mhm.
I've always been a firm believer that to lead my children by example. So, and at that point is when I kind of realized, okay, something needs to change.
Yeah, yeah. And so you and I got connected. You were in the women's group, you were listening to some of the lives. And I think you had listened to one of the ones on mindset. I think it was on emotional eating, and then it connected for you because you and I started a conversation afterwards on it. And what connected with you about the emotional eating pieces?
Oh, a lot. I realized that I was a very, very big emotional eater, and I say was in the past tense because I feel like I've really moved on from it since working with you. Um, and a lot of my habits were I wouldn't care. At that point, I was get back on track. Well, I don't know what that means. And that donut looks really appealing right now. And that is what I'm going to eat because I don't care.
Mhm.
And then at one point, I remember even thinking to myself, like maybe, and this is what came from like what the aftermath was, and it was the self-sabotage. And I would start thinking to myself, maybe I'm okay with how I am. Maybe I'm fine with that. And then I'd be like, I knew I wasn't. So I would just dive into the things I knew I shouldn't be eating again
Mhm.
because it was just easier
Well,
than,
you felt lost and you didn't feel
yeah,
supported, right? And so, and then you're like, well, this is too hard, right? Because I sometimes hear women also say, like, I just want to eat the things I want, but also look the way I look without any
yeah,
judgment from myself. And it's like, well, we can get there. We just got to work through a couple of things first to get to
yeah,
that place, right? And
yeah.
for you, it was like when we started coaching together, and I was like, when are you going to put some sugar on your menu, or when are you going to like put
I
some,
was terrified.
yeah, and we had to really make that safe for you to be able
Yeah,
to do it, because you were worried that once you started you wouldn't be able to stop.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had to really set a really comfortable parameter that felt safe for you to be able to do that. And what did you learn?
It's fine to have sugar. It's okay.
Yeah.
Um, and I learned too that I don't have to have all the sugar just in one day. Like I'm hopeful that I will have a long life ahead of me and I can have sugar throughout my entire life, not just, doesn't have to just be today.
Yeah, and that's such a great thing to point out, because I think that if you envision your future self, and your future self is having, let's say, fries, or you're having a burger, or you're having like a cupcake or whatever, but your current self is trying to avoid it, your subconscious mind is like,
I
well,
just want that.
yeah, it's fighting that, because it knows that this is what you want, but this is what you're doing, right? And so we had to
Yeah.
get to a place where it felt safe. And one of the things that we started, I just remember the peanut butter sandwich story. And I remember that because I think that you came from a place where food was kind of like, how boring can I make my food, or how, I had to eat the same things, and we were trying to get a little bit more variety. And so I remember you're cutting the crust off your kid's peanut butter sandwich, and you're just like, you're talking about the peanut butter sandwich, and then I'm like, well, when you're comparing the peanut butter sandwich to what you're making, no wonder that's appealing to you. So what would you like to have here? And there became a discussion about, well, this is what I want. And then finally we were like, we don't have to choose foods just for weight loss. We can actually choose foods for enjoyment. Would you say that that's kind of what happened there?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
And you weren't used to eating slow or eating to satisfy, right? So talk a little bit about that.
I would probably eat my dinner in less than 10 minutes. And at that point I'd be like, I'd have my first serving, and then it was like, oh, I'm still hungry. So I'd go for a second serving. And by the time I realized it, I was stuffed like to the brim. And it was like, oh my God, okay, I definitely overate. I had no idea what eating to 80% meant. No idea. I didn't know what that felt like. It was just, I just ate until I felt full. I didn't give myself time to feel full. And then when you and I started working together and I had to implement that, I remember my husband looking at me like I was crazy for taking forever to eat my meal. And I'm like, now I sit down at the dinner table and I look at my kids, and I've taken 15 to 20 minutes, sometimes a half an hour to eat, but they're still eating. And I'm like, I really learned a few things from you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things, just because you're on the topic of your kids, is one of the things was we worked on you being more present with your kids.
Yes.
Because you always had thoughts about what you were going to eat, or I remember cleaning up the kitchen when the kids were going to bed and stuff like that. And so some women, the kind of the block is like, I just want to be the best mom, or and whatever that means. And then they're just like, I feel selfish or guilty. So how did you work through that? Because your kids are really young.
Yeah. So my kids are 3 and 6, and I remember when I was doing my intake interview with you and whatnot, and you really highlighted to me about how to think of myself as an included part of my family. So to think of things as me too versus instead of. So I kind of took that with me throughout my journey, and really kind of embraced that. And there was times, and there still is times sometimes, where I do feel a little bit guilty, but then I have to remind myself, and I just tell myself, you know what, it's okay. And the one day my son actually asked me, why do you go to the gym, mommy? And I said, well, because mommy likes to go, and sometimes I need that little bit of a break. And he's like, but why do you go all the time? And keep in mind, I only go about 4 times a week. So, and 2 of the days is Saturday and Sunday morning. But for him, it was like, hey, this is a change. Like, where are you going? What are you doing? So he's 6, and I had the open conversation with him. And I said, buddy, mommy goes to the gym because it helps clear my head, and it helps me be a better mom for you. And so that was our conversation. And then shortly after, a few weeks later, he said, mommy, I know why you go to the gym. And I said, why is that, buddy? And he's like, so you can feel better in here and be a better mom. Like, yep, that's exactly it. So like the whole like working out part for me became so much more about my mental health. And it's helped shape me to be a better mom and be more present for and with my children.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that. I love just highlighting it because you know, it is a struggle that a lot of women face because they take on a lot of the responsibility in the home. And you know, there's this title of mom and what that looks like, being the best mom. And so with that comes a side order of guilt. So I love that you highlighted that. So going back is one of the things. So one of the things that we worked through is how do I want to say it? Like, you going to restaurants was kind of your tripwire. So you want to talk
Yes.
about your tripwire, and then we can kind of talk about how we kind of overcame or worked through that tripwire.
So restaurants was really difficult. And I think it's because I've always associated it as a treat for myself. And that's what was ingrained in my head through my previous programs and whatnot. It was a treat to experience every so often. You didn't go often. And my husband and we like to eat out. We like to take the family out for dinner, and we enjoy restaurant food. I mean, a meal I didn't have to cook.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but it became difficult because I always saw it that way. So I always thought, okay, this is my one shot. I'm getting the apps, I'm getting the good food, and I'm getting a dessert. So when I started with you and we'd go to the restaurants, it was hard because I'm like, okay, no, Denise, like all I thought about was that dessert after dinner or that appetizer before dinner. And I remember going to the restaurant once and I ordered a pistachio crusted codfish, which was good, but it wasn't what I wanted.
Mhm.
So I was eating it and I just like, oh, this is terrible. This is terrible. But it was like, but I ordered it because I knew that I wanted that dessert after. So then I think I reached out to you and I said, hey, I'm having a bit of a problem here. All I think about every time I go to a restaurant is the good, gooey, chocolate covered brownie. And that's just what I want. And so then you posed the challenge for me and questioned when I was going to go out for dinner again, which it was that Thursday. And you had said, okay, well, I want you to you're going to go out for dinner. Don't budget for the dessert. Don't worry about it. You're going to get the dessert, but you can only eat, or you have to be 80% full. And then you have to still eat slow, eat what you want at dinner and enjoy your dinner. And so we ended up going out and we were in Niagara Falls. We ended up going out and I ordered my food and I had my fries. I'm a huge fries person, so I love my French fries. So I had my French fries. I had a chicken breast, a barbecue chicken breast, and on top of it was like, I think 4 barbecued shrimp or something like that with steamed veggies on the side. So I ate that. I ate it really slowly. I enjoyed every single bite. The French fries were so crispy. They were so delicious. And I didn't want dessert.
Yeah, because I remember checking in on you after and I was like, so, and you were like, guess what? I didn't even order dessert. And I was like, what? And you were like, no, my fries just were enough. And
Yeah.
to you, it was like, it was a good experiment to try because for you, it was like, you were so consumed in thought. You weren't even present in your meal. You were so consumed in like that dessert and whatever. And it feeling like it was off limits, right? And so it made
Yeah.
it even like more enticing. And so
Yeah.
when we took the parameter off, we said, hey, you can have dessert, you can have whatever you want for dinner, but you just got to eat slow, eat to 80% full, and you just stick to that. Then all of a sudden it was like, you got to enjoy your food versus the thought of the thing that was coming next.
Right. Exactly.
And then from there, because I remember when you were in that stint, your kids had birthdays back to back, and then there was
Yes.
parties and stuff. So you were eating out a lot. And so it worked out really well that we had a couple of those experiments. And then that was where things started to shift for you, where it was like you started to really, because we were working on the mindset stuff. Because I also remember coworkers your boss bringing in donuts to work. And I remember us setting up, but then that was like the shift that happened. And then I remember saying, hey, Denise, I was like, we need a little bit longer than 12 weeks here. And we're like, because I can't leave you hanging on this big moment here. I need to see you through it. And you were like, yeah. So, and it was a big shift, because after that, it started to be like, even when you jumped on a scale, it was different for you. Even you having conversations with your husband, Lou, they were like, you were very asking for help. You were more communicating together. You were spending more time. Like a lot of series of things started to connect for you. And it was like the snowball started happening.
Yeah, absolutely. It was.
Yeah. And so so it was really great to see, because in the beginning it was I could see you were really kind of scared, because you came from that experience and you were just like, trying to feel out the water. And then I would every once in a while throw in, something in there, and then you'd be like, oh, okay. Shift happened, and then it was like a series of different things just happened from there too. And then you even started a little bit of journaling too.
Yes, I did. I did start some journaling. Yeah, touching base on everything that like I experienced and went through. It was, I mean, I've said this before to many people, it was life-changing for me. It gave me a greater understanding of how much your mind really plays into your weight loss. And like you said, my conversations with my husband became very, very different. Like we spent the one time talking for hours about our love language and what that meant, and really realized that we were just kind of surfing by, like we weren't really being mindful with what we were doing. And so we changed a few things, and it's been a game changer. Like the food, just recognizing that I didn't need to eat an entire boxcar donut all the time when they came in to work, or whatever the case might have been.
Yeah, and even you did have an episode where you did overeat, right?
I
And
did, yes.
we, there was some emotional stuff that was happening. There was a trigger that happened, and then there was some emotional eating that happened. And even that we were able to work through, where it didn't set you back for 2, 3, 4 days. It was just like it set you back. And then we figured out what we needed out of that moment, so that if the next moment comes up, we knew what to do. And we also had a plan for moving forward.
Right.
Yeah. Is that how you felt about it too?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I remember that moment when there was that trigger, and I was like, I think I even messaged you and said I feel like I had a relapse because I'm like, I went back, and I didn't say let it go, and I didn't say, I don't know, can I swear?
Yeah.
I didn't say F it. I went to the kitchen and found something, and I think I took a bite out of it or whatnot, and I was like, no, this isn't what I need. And I threw it out.
Yeah. 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 I love that you're sharing all that, because it's like honest, and it's like so many women can relate. Like I'm in the DMs with a lot of women that are in the group, and so I get to hear them all. And so when you share something like that, I'm like, I can think of all these conversations I've already had with people, and how it's just going to resonate with them. And so I just want to talk a little bit too, because you're Portuguese. And so
Yes.
your parents eat different, your husband's kind of traditional. And so how did that work? How did culture kind of meet this journey?
It's still a work in progress.
Yeah.
Actually, the other day, my mom, she made fish, and they actually live with us in our granny suite, and she came up and was like, oh, you know, mom made fish. We're gonna have fish for dinner. I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna eat that, mom. Sorry. And she's like, what? So that was really, sorry, I'm getting interrupted, my daughter. Go see daddy. Okay. Yes. What? What? Sorry.
It's all good.
It's not here. You just go outside? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, we're gonna have a little visitor for a
That's
little
okay.
bit.
Hi.
Can you say hi? Sorry, yeah, so that's still a work in progress, and especially like for my parents, but I've even like some of the foods that I've been making and when I've been trying to get my dad to try and my mom to try, and she's still a little bit more hesitant. My dad's like, oh, this is really good. Oh, this is really good. And I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And growing up, like it was rare that we had vegetables. Like vegetables in a Portuguese house, just unless it's potatoes, which is more of a carb. Yeah, that it was very scarce to have vegetables. And so introducing that into like my family and being the first person out of my family to like really be more cautious about what I'm eating and whatnot, it's definitely difficult, but it's nice too at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. No, I like that because I'm Portuguese too, so I totally related to some of the struggles. And even when you mentioned foods like pop six, and I'm just like, yeah, I know. I know what those are,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So what would you say to a woman who was like, I just want a meal plan. Just tell me what to eat.
So that's funny that you say that because I used to be that person. I used to say, just tell me what to eat and I'll follow it. But it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
It's
What
a
makes it
lot harder. Well, your mind kind of goes to that point of that part of like, well, I have this, oh, now I can't eat that. And then now I can't eat that and I can't eat that. So you kind of almost like, for me, you kind of almost flip your mind back to it being restrictive, and that fear of missing out. And suddenly now, instead of making it choice based, it's become I can't have this.
right. So a limiting kind of mindset,
Yes,
which makes those things that you shouldn't have even more appealing.
exactly. Yeah.
And meal plan for me also makes it hard to navigate weddings when I don't know what's on the menu,
Yes.
a buffet, a vacation, right? I'm
Yeah.
assuming that was the same thing for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And
For
then
sure.
what do you think were the biggest pieces? Because sometimes women are just like, well, if I just lose the weight, then I'll figure out the mindset pieces. What were like the biggest mindset pieces that you were just like, if I had learned that 6 years ago, then I wouldn't have struggled so hard?
For me, it was that there's no bad food. That was a big one. She's copying me, sorry. That was a big one. And because you're so used to being told, like for me anyways, my entire life, it was, no, you have this before that, and you have dinner before you have your dessert, and don't eat too much of that and whatnot. And realizing now that there is no bad food. There's good food, there's better food, and then there's the best food you can eat for yourself. And I learned that from you.
I like that you just used the terminology.
Yes. So that was the big one for me. Another big mindset shift was what was the other one? I lost it. Sorry.
There's no bad food, no good or bad. It's good, better, and best, right? And
Yeah,
they all make you feel certain things in your body, and some of them make you feel differently.
exactly.
And then we need to know, well, what are those feelings kind of, are they signaling towards us, right?
Yeah.
And anything else that you think about, like mindset, that if you knew that 6 years ago?
Um, oh goodness. Well, I used to always say you can't outrun your fork. And that was something that was, again, always told to me previously and whatnot. And while I think there might be some truth to that, for me, if I knew the difference that working out and exercising would have made for me 6 years ago, um, I think I would have viewed it very differently from the beginning.
Meaning like you would have done it, like what does that mean?
So for me, working out and exercising had played a huge role in helping me navigate through my mental health.
Hmm.
And 6 years ago, I just saw it as, okay, I have to work out to lose weight.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Whereas now I look at it as, sure, it's an added bonus. But for me, it's more about helping me release any stress, helping me, be a better person. And with that, I'm now making better choices. So it's just one big circle.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love
And
that.
and it's just all connected in different ways.
Yeah. And I think like for you, it was like, it was the emotional pieces were really big triggers or setbacks, whatever you want to call them for you. And for us, we needed to figure out like how to create a safety box for you to navigate, have those feelings, but also then change your relationship to those feelings, give them space, but not put them on, the food to then create a different kind of cycle of feelings afterwards of shame and guilt and that sort of stuff. And that was something that previous diets hadn't kind of helped with you
Right.
figure out those now. So now, okay, so now you lost weight,
Yep.
you lost lots of inches.
Yep.
We're done the coaching program, and like where are you at now? Like what's in the future for Denise?
So I went on to do the 28-day challenge with you in your consistency group, which I'm loving. And my plan is to remain in the consistency group. I feel that it's been very helpful, very supportive. Initially, when I joined, I was a little, I guess, intimidated would be the best word, because I'm like, oh, I don't know any of these people. They all look fantastic. You can tell they're working really hard at all of this, and I'm the newbie over here. And then once you kind of start to notice everyone commenting and posting, you realize, okay, we're all here for the same thing, and we're all here to essentially achieve the same thing individually for ourselves. And for me, it's about having that even bigger network of support. So my plan is to continue to stay within the consistency club and work towards the rest of my goals. And at one point, I thought that a goal of mine was a specific weight that I wanted to be, and now that's not necessarily true anymore. For me, it's more about to continue to lead a healthy lifestyle for myself, my husband, and my kids. A side note, my husband actually had or has he has a immune disease, an autoimmune disease, which is attacking his kidneys. So he has to eat specific foods. And that was a lot of the reason too why I also did start being more serious about, okay, I need to find something that's going to work for me, because obviously this isn't working for me and it's not going to work for him. And I knew I couldn't help him if I didn't help myself first.
Mhm. I love that.
So I plan on, staying with a consistency club and continuing with my workouts and giving myself permission to enjoy the foods I love every once in a while, because that's okay.
Yeah, I love that. And I just want to go back to your husband too, because it goes to, you put your own oxygen mask on first so that you're better able to help those other ones.
Yeah.
Because you are a more present mom. But two, now you're trying all these new recipes. And he's like, you just said to me before we jumped on the interview, he's saying like, can we just not go back to the way we were?
Yes. Yeah. He's like, please. He's like, I'd be okay if we didn't go back to how we used to eat before. I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
sure.
your son loves asparagus. And so
Yeah.
sometimes stepping up to be the leader, then when others are ready, then they'll follow and you'll be in a position to lead them.
Yeah.
And I just like, that's just a prime example of it kind of all falling into place that way.
Yeah, for sure.
I love it. And I love that you went we ended up working 16 weeks together, and then going into the consistency club, because we were able to work one-on-one on the things that were specific to you, and you were in a better headspace then to head into the group and be in that space, not see it as a comparison or competitive environment, but as a supportive.
Yeah.
You've already done a lot of the work. And so just as we wrap up, like what would be like the advice you would give to a woman here who feels like she's tried it all and she's looking for the tactic, the thing to stick to, it's what would you say to that woman watching this?
So I'm actually going to share a piece of advice and whatnot that you shared with me. When we first started my whole journey together. And I wasn't sure. I think if you recall, I wasn't sure if I wanted to invest in myself and whatnot. And I remember you telling me to take a look at where my life would be in like 6 months down the road. And there was a lot of autopilot happening. And you kind of not told me, but suggested, well, how much better of a person would you be if you invested in yourself? And I said, a lot better. If this works for me and I make these changes for myself, then I know I could be a better person for everyone else around me. And so I guess my advice to whoever needs to hear it is to take the plunge, invest in yourself. And Cindy is a kick-ass coach. No one would go wrong with having you as their coach. And I'm so thankful every day that I took that plunge and I took your advice for doing it.
It's so funny because you've never shared that story with me. And so I didn't even know that was what held impact for you. And that would be the words that you would use to inspire somebody else to kind of take the plunge. So thanks for sharing that. But also thanks for taking the plunge on me, because we didn't, like I said, in our closing, kind of like, you didn't know me really. And you just resonated with what you were seeing with the videos, and you were resonating with that. And then you and I, did a long talk. It was about over an hour before we even yeah, because I wanted to be sure you were a good fit. You wanted to be sure I was a good fit. And so we had a lot of air to make sure it was going to work together before we jumped in. And you embraced a lot of the mindset pieces. We did them very slowly, but you embraced a lot of them. And then that's why you're here. And that's why you're feeling more of your wholeness, in your relationships. And so thank you for taking the plunge too, I guess. Right. Any closing thoughts before we go?
I don't think so. Like I said, it's been a life-altering experience, and I'm very grateful for being able to do it. And I'm really looking forward to what's yet to come.
Yeah, we are too. So do keep us posted, because you're still in the women's group and you're in the consistency club. So I'm excited to see kind of how it all continues to unfold for you. So I want to thank you for taking your time and doing this interview and sharing your story with us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me,
Denise.
Okay.